Did you know that two newspapers actually started the Spanish-American War in 1898 by making up stories just to sell more papers? Two powerful American newspapers blamed Spain for the explosion of the USS Maine, which led to the start of the war. Just because it's in the news doesn't make it true. And what if I told you that this kind of manipulation is still happening today? Since the beginning, the media has had the power to shape what people think and even start wars. Fake news and twisted stories are nothing new. What many people don't realize is that even though controlling information has changed, the idea is the same. Whoever controls the media controls the story. Today, this control has shifted to social media, where different voices are speaking up and questioning the official narrative. This has sparked a real information war. Traditional media backed by powerful politicians and wealthy individuals are trying to regain control and silence platforms that allow different stories to be told. It's important to ask who these media outlets really work for and why they're attacking social media so fiercely. Operation Mockingbird. Media control by the CIA. A clear example of how governments manipulate the media is Operation Mockingbird. During the Cold War, the CIA planted journalists in major US media outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post. The goal? To make sure the news supported American policies overseas. These journalists were misleading the public, protecting the interests of the powerful. Even though it officially ended, it's still a clear example of how traditional media can be used as tools for propaganda and control. Pedro Sánchez and El País. Intervention in Spanish media. More recently, we saw how political leaders can directly interfere with the media. In 2015, Pedro Sánchez, then leader of the PSOE party, demanded that El País change a headline before it was published because it made his party look bad. This incident is a clear example of how politicians can influence the media and how the media can cave to pressure. Additionally, media outlets like El País rely on government funding, which compromises their independence. Control over information is no longer just in the hands of traditional media. With the rise of social media, digital platforms have become spaces where different perspectives can thrive. However, politicians and governments have launched direct attacks on these platforms to restrict free speech and make sure their version of the story stays in control. A clear example is Pavel Durov, founder of Telegram, a platform known for its commitment to privacy. In August 2024, Durov was arrested in France for refusing to help governments censor content. The pressure from the European Union has been constant, as Telegram is used by activists and journalists to share information freely. This arrest was a clear message. Governments will not tolerate platforms that allow the free flow of information outside their control. Another relevant case is Elon Musk. After buying X, formerly known as Twitter, Musk pushed for more free speech. However, his stance clashed with the European Union, Brazil, Australia, and other governments that want more censorship. The European Union's Digital Services Act, or DSA, requires platforms like X to remove content that goes against official narratives. Musk has resisted, placing himself at the center of a battle for the future of free speech online. Hate speech laws, originally designed to protect vulnerable groups, have been used to go after critical and politically incorrect opinions, limiting freedom of expression. A significant example is Ruben Gisbert, a lawyer and YouTuber, accused of hate speech for his criticism of the conflict in Ukraine. The prosecutor who pushed the case didn't have jurisdiction, but she insisted on prosecuting Gisbert. Fortunately, the courts ruled in his favor, showing how hate speech laws can be misused to censor legitimate political criticism. The media has been accused of twisting the public's perception to justify military interventions, always siding with the interests of the West and NATO. Kosovo, 1999. NATO's intervention was presented as humanitarian, while atrocities committed by other actors in the conflict were ignored. Iraq War, 2003. The narrative about weapons of mass destruction was crucial in justifying the invasion. Later, it was proven that this information was false. Syria since 2011. The media supported the rebels, ignoring the presence of extremists in their ranks, which helped justify Western intervention. Libya, 2011. Gaddafi was demonized to legitimize NATO's intervention. Economic motivations, such as control over oil, were downplayed. Ukraine, since 2022. Western media has presented a one-sided narrative, condemning Russia and downplaying the tensions in Donbass. Spain's General Law on Audiovisual Communication, enacted in 2022, has imposed strict regulations on content creators. Although presented as a measure to protect users, it has actually become a tool to censor critical voices. Harsh penalties, fines of up to 1.5 million euros for inciting hatred, allowing the government to act against creators who challenge the official narrative. Ambiguity. The definition of hate speech is so broad that it encompasses critical opinions against the government, facilitating censorship. Silencing criticism. The law forces creators to censor themselves or avoid controversial topics, forcing them to align with the dominant narrative. The Spanish government's action plan for democracy, under the premise of fighting disinformation, seems designed to silence critical media and control the public narrative. Media registry, an official registry that will allow the government to decide which media outlets are legitimate and which are not, leaving out alternative ones. Fact-checking committees, funded by Google, YouTube, the European Union, and NATO, among others. These committees have the power to label and discredit content. The connection with these big players raises suspicions of conflicts of interest. Censorship. These fact-checkers can be used to suppress narratives that don't favor governments or corporations, thus controlling public debate. Governments, big tech companies, and international organizations like the European Union and NATO have implemented strategies to control public narratives and limit critical voices. Traditional media, funded by political and economic interests, align with these efforts, while social media and independent platforms are under constant pressure to censor content that doesn't fit the official narrative. It is crucial to protect freedom of expression at a time when social media has allowed for the proliferation of alternative voices. Increasing censorship, disguised as a fight against disinformation, threatens the plurality of ideas, an essential pillar of democracy. We need more transparency in media regulation and to defend the right of citizens to receive information from diverse perspectives. If you feel that what's happening affects freedom of expression on the internet, like this video so that more people know the reality.